newsmakers and everyday citizens as they share their perspective, providing a comprehensive overview of the political landscape. Tune in every Thursday, 4 to 5 p.m. on Hard Facts to be a part of the global conversation on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
Lagos, what's up? Introducing the essence of true authenticity in fragrance Wazobia perfume. It's the correct scent. It's a unique blend that captivates the authentic spirit of Nigeria, and it's now available in perfume and body spray. It's designed for everyone, so you know it's a unisex fragrance, perfect for both men and women. Its rich and versatile aroma is a statement of inclusivity and unity, so you can unleash your confidence with every spray. If you're a retailer or you love to buy in bulk, then we've got you covered across Nigeria. Wazobia perfume comes in cartons of 24 bottles, and the body spray is available in cartons of 48. If you're interested in making Wazobia perfume a part of your collection or store, and you want to make carton purchases, you can send an email to contact@wazobiacosmetics.ng. That is contact@wazobiacosmetics.ng, or call the number 0201 33 00047 0201 33 00047. Our team is ready to assist you with your orders. Wazobia perfume, it's the correct scent. Your new signature fragrance is just a call or a click away. If it's authentic, it's unisex, it's giving confidence, then you know it's Wazobia.
Millions of listeners trust us on Hard Fact. Whether it's politics, social issues, controversies, and trending stories, you know we're credible and objective.
It's Hard Facts with Maryann Okon on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
All right, welcome to Global Review on Hard Facts. This is the nation's #1 talk news and sports radio station, and we're broadcasting live from our audio-visual studios right here in Intermediate Crescent, Victoria Island, the economic capital of Nigeria, Lagos. Today, we're looking at the renewed tensions between the world's two largest economies, China and the United States. Now, the Biden administration had announced new tariffs targeting Chinese electric vehicles, semiconductors, and other strategic sectors. Beijing was expected to retaliate. Now, in a fresh chapter in an ongoing rivalry that's reshaping global trade geopolitics, Donald Trump has slapped China with an increase in tariff, obviously. But beyond Washington and Beijing, how will this particularly affect the rest of the world, especially Africa? What are the implications for global supply chains, investment flows, and commodity prices? Joining us to break down all of this is Professor Scott Lucas. He's international politics expert and an analyst with decades of experience following U.S. foreign policy and global affairs. Professor, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being here. Every time we call, we appreciate you.
The pleasure is always mine. It's always great to find out what's happening in, like you say, the economic capital of Nigeria, and working with great folks like yourself.
Thank you. So let's quickly just start by looking at what's been happening lately. What's behind the latest round of tariff escalations between, the U.S. and China? What are both sides trying to achieve? I mean, we all know what Donald Trump is after. He keeps saying America first, but is it really working in the interest of Americans?
Yeah, I think it's really important, Maryann, that you started off by saying, look, there were tariffs before the magic chart that Donald Trump held up 2 weeks ago. You can go back to Trump 1.0 and how he was trying to bluster his way versus the Chinese, and there'd be a trade war. And there was actually, an agreement of sorts between the two countries there. But the Biden administration kept on many of the tariffs that Trump put on China because of this competition between Washington and Beijing. And you all will know this well in Nigeria. It's a competition for influence. It's a competition in the tech sectors, including the high-tech sector. It's between rival communications companies like Huawei and American companies. And so there was sort of this battle, which meant that no one was an angel here. But what happened with Trump is that even in battles, there's kind of rules of the game. And Trump just ripped up the rules of the game. And he did it by not only saying, I'm going to slap all these tariffs on China, but by slapping tariffs on everybody else. No one got away. And that makes it kind of bizarre, which is, look, if your beef is with China, that they have unfair trading practices, that they carry out industrial espionage, that you're rivals with them, well, okay, you focus on China, but why do you punish Nigeria with a tariff? Why do you punish Europe with a tariff? Why do you punish an island which has nothing but penguins, the Herd McDonald Islands, with tariffs? What have the penguins ever done to you? And the fact here is that we have to start with the realization that the tariffs don't have the standard explanation that I would give for tariffs, right? Instead, it was a businessman, Donald Trump, who looks at everything in terms of a win-lose relationship, who wanted to get money and power. And he had advisors around him that did so as well. So if I could tell you a story very quickly, because I think it's important, which is the story of the magic chart. On April the 2nd, when Donald Trump portrayed Liberation Day by liberating us all by imposing tariffs, you might remember he held up that chart with a lot of numbers on it. And I looked at the chart and I said, wait, those aren't tariff levels. He said, the EU, the European Union, has a tariff level of 39% on U.S. goods. So, actually, the EU average weighted tariff in 2024 was 1%. He said Japan had a 46% tariff. Now, the actual figure is between 3 and 4%. I think Nigeria came in at around 28%, and that's absolute nonsense. Nigeria has a relatively low tariff rate on U.S. products. And what had happened is that chart had nothing to do with tariffs. What they did is they took the total number of exports that a country sent to America, and if the U.S. had a trade deficit, they divided the trade deficit into that to come up with this percentage figure. And that's why Lesotho, which doesn't import many American goods, and you know why, that's why they got hit by this 50% tariff, right? Even though they haven't got a big tariff on U.S. products, they just don't buy many of them. Anyway, the tariffs were nonsense. This was a grab for power, is what it was. The problem for Trump, and this always happens because he's kind of a bully, is when people punch back, he doesn't know what to do. And before we talk about China, which will be the focus of what we talk about, the Canada punched back, you might remember, and said, okay, you hit us with tariffs.
They were the first, actually, to respond. Yeah.
And given how close Canada's relations are with the United States, they're neighbors after all, it was significant. They said, we're not going to take this, especially when Trump called them the 51st state. And so they pushed back. Mexico pushed back. The European Union, in its typical European Union, kind of slow, kind of measured way, but they pushed back as well. And then, of course, the Chinese pushed back hard. And they said, all right, you hit us with what initially was a 54% tariff. We're going to put a 34% tariff on you. And then Trump said, okay, I'm going to make it 104%. And China said, okay, 84. Trump said 125. They said 104. Then Trump said 145. And the Chinese said, look, we're going to stop responding to this because this is nonsense now. Because you effectively have priced these tariffs so high, it's not worth it for us to send Chinese products to the United States. And it's not worth it for us to take U.S. products, which means, and you want to know what the effect is on everybody, and it will affect everybody. Even before you get to the effects on supply chains and on Nigerian agriculture, Nigerian manufacturing, China and the United States account for 3% of all the world's trade. 3%.
Yes.
If you have an all-out trade war between the U.S. and China, the projected slowdown in global gross domestic product will reach 7%, a relative 7% loss in GDP.
Wow.
We're not there yet, but we're on course for it. And the latest figures we have in terms of what happens immediately is that the global growth rate was projected to be around about 2.8% this year. It's now already been lowered to about 2.2%, and we're on path where it'll be lowered to about 1.7.
Wow.
So everybody in the world is going to be affected, even if they don't go into recession. It's going to slow their economies down.
I saw a post today from the World Trade Organization head, Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, saying that she was very concerned as this tariff cuts into global trade. Let me just quickly read a bit of what she said. She said that She said that this actually that Trump's tariff offensive is fueling uncertainty that threatens severe negative consequences for the world. And just as you have said, we might not immediately feel it, but then we're gradually going to get there, because whether we like it or not, these are the two big economies in the world, and if both of them are fighting, then everybody else is going to, there's going to be a reverberating effect across the country and the global economies. And whether we like it or not, the countries have already had economic downturns. I mean, for the United Kingdom, you're still trying to stabilize yourselves. And African countries are also facing some sort of for Nigeria, we've had a double-digit inflation for the past few years now, and we're still, having to deal with that. So, but let's talk mostly about the U.S. here, because I've seen so many videos from Chinese manufacturers, just literally taking the mickey out of this whole situation, because all of the big brands are now covering their faces in shame. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, they literally took the Mickey out of the Americans by talking about a Mickey Mouse administration. I mean, they've been trolling the Trump folks. I mean, China is going to take a hit from this. I mean, the fact here is that China does take in certain U.S. products. Those will be more expensive for the Chinese. The Chinese, of course, will lose some of their export market. Now they will try to redirect their exports to other countries. And so it will be interesting, and we might talk further about how they try to export more to Africa and trade more with Africa. But they know they're going to have to sort of have a little bit of a sacrifice. But for China, the argument here is, look, we can't let him bully us. We cannot let him bully us, because this is political as well as economic. Right. And so China is going to push back. And China also thinks it has certain advantages on this, which I think they do. First of all, China has a centrally planned economy versus the American economy, which has much more private enterprise. All that. It's much easier for a centrally planned economy to direct its manufacturing, its exports, its investment strategy, and to tell its people, you may have to sacrifice as part of this. China's been doing this for decades as they launched themselves from an economy that opened up to other countries in the 80s to where they are now. Secondly, the Chinese think they have an advantage over the Americans in certain markets, especially with the Americans taking this hit by looking like the bad guys on the tariffs as well as other issues. And Africa will be one of those places that China has an advantage. But thirdly, the world's largest holder of U.S. bonds, which finance the 36 trillion, that's trillion with a T, dollar U.S. debt, the world's largest holder of U.S. bonds is the Chinese.
Really?
And if the Chinese have been buying up U.S. bonds for years and years and years. And if Trump wants an all-out trade war, what happens is the Chinese sell off the bonds. If you sell off the bonds, then the price of the bonds
will plummet,
will plummet, and then the effective interest rate that you have to pay on the bonds will increase. So the Americans will have to pay an increased interest rate to finance that massive government debt. Wow. So the Chinese have got options to play here, both politically and economically. And I'm not sure. I know Trump hasn't gamed this out, and I will now. I'm going to tell you what I went ahead and said it blatantly. You'll be the second outlet I said it with. I said it with another outlet earlier this week because I just got tired of holding this back. Trump is an economic moron. He is an absolute economic moron who doesn't know the first thing. He thinks tariffs operate like replace income tax. The tariffs are a tax. And you know who the first people are who get taxed by tariffs? It's not Nigerians. It's not Chinese. It's Americans. Because an exporter doesn't pay that tariff. It's the American importer that pays the tariff. So it's the American farmer who imports the goods. It's the American manufacturer who imports. And it's the American consumer who imports and buys those goods. Trump doesn't know that. The people around Trump, some of them do know what goes on, but they're now what's called warrior protectionists. They think America can be a self-sufficient, self-sustaining economy. They're kicking back against the idea of a globalized economy. This includes a man named Peter Navarro. I don't think that works either, for reasons I can go into. But they're pursuing this type of protectionism that we haven't seen since the 1930s. And here's the stinger in this. When the Americans launched global protectionism in the 1930s with what's called the Smoot-Hawley Act, the largest tariff in the world before 2 weeks ago, you know what happened next. It fed a global depression. So I think what you have here is an American administration that didn't do this in terms of economic rationale. They're playing power, big boy bully politics. And what happens if others in the playground decide they're not going to get bullied? That's where we are.
This just reminds me, and then just a little, deviation. It reminds me of Brexit and, the taxes that the people in the UK have to pay just to import something from Scotland or, wherever. At first, it sounded like a great idea in Nigel Farage's mind, I guess. But then, of course, now, the people in the United Kingdom obviously are paying for it.
Yeah, if I was being impolite, I'd call Nigel Farage a grifter, but I'm not impolite. The fact of the matter is, and I wouldn't do that because lawyers could be listening, right? Here's the reality of what was happening. Brexit was a slogan. It was a slogan because of people who had this emotional idea of a Great Britain back from the good old days. And why would Great Britain need Europe? Why can't it just take over the world on its own? And let's say that Nigel Farage is actually someone who had that idea. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt, right? The fact of the matter here is that, and I said this at the time before the referendum, I said it afterwards, and I said it today, Brexit effectively was a case of a country putting a gun to its head and saying, don't get any closer or I'll shoot. It was economically going to be damaging from the start because the UK was isolating itself from one of the world's largest markets, the EU. It wasn't replacing that market with another market like the US. It wasn't replacing it with an expansion in African markets. It was going to effectively try to go it alone. And as you point out, Great Britain, the England, Wales, and Scotland have a tariff barrier, have barriers with Northern Ireland. Because Northern Ireland is actually part of the European Union economically. So it made no sense. But what they said, and I'll link this back to what's happening now, is what they kept saying again and again is, oh, Brexit, if there's short-term pain, there's going to be long-term gain. Short-term pain, long-term gain. Guess where I've heard that repeatedly in the last 2 weeks? Every Trump person who came out has been saying that and has been saying, okay, we're not going to benefit immediately from the tariffs. We're sorry we said that, but we're not going to. But in the long term, we will, right? I mean, one of their Trumpist PR people was on Fox TV yesterday saying, it's just like exercise, right? It's just like exercise. You have to go through short-term pain to get long-term gain. I go, no, it's not just like exercise. These tariffs are like shooting yourselves in both legs. And guess what? There's no long-term gain from shooting yourself in both legs. That's just a reality.
Professor Lucas, we're going to go on a quick break. When we come back, Scott Lucas is still with us. We're looking at the China-US tariff war and how this affects the rest of the world, especially Africa. When we come back from the break, I'll be asking Africa-specific questions. Stay with us. It's still Global Review, 99.3 Nigeria Info FM.
Millions of listeners trust us on Hard Fact. Whether it's politics, social issues, controversies, and trending stories, you know we're credible and objective.
It's Hard Facts with Maryann Okon on 99.3 Nigeria Info.
You are listening to your number one station for talk.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.
Help build strong bones with Vitabiotics Osteocare from the UK. The supplement that's not just calcium, but also contains scientific cofactors better absorption into the bones. Nourish your bones, teeth, and muscles with Osteocare. In Nigeria, we need calcium calcium for our children through adult life and especially for our seniors to help prevent stunted growth, broken bones, and osteoporosis. Osteocare Scientific Formula, not just calcium for strong bones from Vitabiotics UK, available in pharmacies around you.
You define better odd. I be you one play cause over 1.5. I be you one bet. Say both seem no go score at all. Yeah, we get better payout to one. No worry, we there for you. Our odd chabrat out. In all the feeling show. Oh no, we there for you. Oh, we there for you. You see for bet Baba, we win money. Bet Baba, cash out today easy. For bet Baba, we get online games for you to play. Oh God, I want. Yeah, we get better bonus. Money we know no. Yeah, now bet Baba they are so. Cash out no sharp. Oh darling, no. Welcome to Bet Baba.
Register now on betsbaba.ng. Not for people under 18.
What can your bank do for you? Meet Jane, 25 years old. She's been having troubles acquiring a loan from her bank.
This is not okay at all. I've been on this queue forever, and you're saying I should fill another form. What's going on?
What can your bank do for you? Meet Frank, 27 years old, held up in traffic and making fruitless transactions.
Mama, I have saved the airtime, even the electricity charges. I don't know why it's so difficult making this payment.
Introducing Safri, a lifestyle digital bank that's designed just for you. With one click, you can make easy and fast payment transactions, pay bills, and even acquire easy loans. Hurry and download the Safri app on your Play Store. Visit safrisafri.com for more information. Safri, borderless banking.
Ogbonge taste and aroma.
It's amazing how your child grows up before your eyes. Enable their thriving development and the care they need with the new NanKid 4 with HMOs to support your child's development, probiotics to help your child's digestion and development, and high-quality proteins to support age-appropriate growth. And all of these work together to support your child's development and growth today and tomorrow. NanKid 4. Nourish your child's potential.
Now so I did on my own. Now a message enter my phone. Fiam. I can't click Fiam. Now so my money for account go. Fiam. Hey. If to say na Airtel you they use, them for first alert you before you click Airtel they identify spammers. Then alert them customers with AI powered service to make sure say you know for Mugu for Wuru scam messages. No charges, no subscription needed. Me self they go join Airtel. Fiam.
Airtel, a reason to imagine.
My ions, please, can't get enough. My ions, please, give it to me now. It gon' rehydrate you, yeah. Replenish your ions with Pocari Sweat. Rehydrate you faster, easy we observe. Pocari Sweat, give me some more. Pocari Sweat.
What is the square root of pi by 4?
4.0.
Wow, that's my girl. The Cowbellpedia Mega Minds is here. Don't miss a single moment of the action in the Cowbellpedia Mega Minds 2025 edition.
Over the 14 weeks, viewers also stand a chance to win prizes when they participate from home.
Tune in to Cowbellpedia Mega Minds on Africa Magic or visit our website at cowbellpedia.tv to learn more.
Terms and conditions apply. Cowbell. So good, so smart.
Mr. As my guy don't win, me say don't ginger. No dollar. We did jolly just come welcome offer. Download BetKing app and register today using the promo code FreeBets to enjoy your 100 Naira instant sign-up bonus and other exciting offers. Terms and conditions apply. Not for persons under 18 years. Play responsibly.
99.3 Nigeria Info.
Your number one station for talk. Let's talk. Let's talk.
This is Hot Facts
on Niger Info 99.3 FM. My name is Shegwa Rinze.
All right, we're back. It's still Global Review on Hard Facts, 99.3 Nigeria Info. We still have Professor Scott Lucas with us, and we're looking at the tariff war between the United States and China, the repercussions, and of course, how this might affect not just global markets, but the African market. Now, don't forget that most of us in Africa, we import a lot. We're not as industrialized as we should be. But of course, whatever it is, even if we had 1,000 industries, we'd still have one way or the other. We will still be affected, by the way. So Scott has told us, of course, what's at the core of this war. But then, how will Africans and African markets be affected? Professor, thank you so much for staying with us. Let's go back to all of the things that you've said. We've talked about how this sounds and looks like Brexit. But let's look at Africa specifically. What kind of direct or indirect impact will this tariff war have on African economies? Should African countries be worried about the disruptions in their trade? Again, is this supposedly a I don't know how to say it. Is this more like a wake-up call for Africa? While these two big countries are warring, what should we be doing to, better our lot, for the want of a better way to describe it?
Right. It's certainly a blinking red light that you have to be prepared and take action. If you start with, for example, Nigeria's exports, the estimate I've just read doing my homework for today is that, 2 trillion with a T, naira, about 1.25 billion US dollars in Nigerian exports could be affected by the tariffs, right? Now, that doesn't mean that all of those exports will be shut off, but it means that some of them could be affected. That's an immediate effect. That's less revenue for Nigerian companies, for Nigerian farmers, for the Nigerian government. And less revenue means you have an impact on your economy. And every country in Africa is going to face this situation to varying degrees, depending on how their economy is set up. But then you also have the issue that, as you've mentioned, that the goods you import could be more expensive. Mm-hmm. And of course, that could be, if Nigeria chose to respond with tariffs on the U.S., it could be U.S. goods would be more expensive. Now, I don't think Nigeria will actually respond that way, but because you're taking goods that will be more expensive to produce because of the U.S. tariffs, right? Because the U.S. is part of the global supply chains, there'll be a knock-on effect. So you might import certain goods from Europe that will be more expensive because of this. You might import certain goods from other African countries that will be affected, that will be more expensive. So you have that takes place. And then you have the third level that takes place, which is this disrupts international financial organizations because you make your planning in terms of development, in terms of investment, and then all of this is disrupted because the United States has unsettled all of your planning. It specifically means that at an international level, the type of investment that comes into Nigeria could be reduced because other countries might pull back from making investment decisions because of that. So you say, well, what do you do to counter that? And I think my starting point is this. You and I discussed about this politically, and I think you applied economically as well. I think politically you have to say that we don't look at a world where the U.S. leads and everybody else follows. You have to develop your political relationships with other countries in Africa, with China, with European countries. I'm not saying you have to be best friends with all of them, but you have to develop political relationships where you can try to benefit from them. And you have to do this. You have to do the same thing here economically. And that is, okay, if your American market is going to decrease because it's more expensive to export there, where can you go with other markets for your goods? If your investment in your industry is going to decrease from the United States, which other countries may invest in Nigeria that would be effective? If you have an African free trade area, which you do, we do, because it was established in 2021, how do you make the African free trade area effective with a cooperative approach, which is not just simply one country does this and someone else doesn't win out. How do you make it a win-win relationship where you spread investment and trade across the continent? Now, all of that you should do anyway, but this just increases the necessity to do it. I will say one thing on top of this, by the way. There's sort of an immediate reaction I've been getting, because I've been doing a few of these interviews past couple of weeks, which is a lot of people say, oh, okay, it's great because the U.S., we can't rely on the U.S., and that's okay. We're going to embrace China. Now,
I was about to say that because, I mean, whether you like it or not, China is a major infrastructure and debt partner for many African nations, including Nigeria. So I do not know. I mean, let you just say what you wanted to say. I just wanted to put that out there.
Well, I think, let's see if you have this discussion, because the fact here is that no country comes in and gives you things free of charge. No country does it because they're like Santa Claus or whatever the equivalent is, right? You know,
Father Christmas.
They do it. Father Christmas. You're not Father Christmas. They're doing it because they have their own interests. They want to make a profits as well. Now, there can be certain bases where you can work with China in terms of a win-win relationship. So if China invests and they help build up Nigerian industry, that's great. If China buys Nigerian products, that's great. But if China comes in with a type of investment which benefits Chinese companies who take the profits back to China, if China puts you into a debt relationship, what we call a debt trap, where you have to keep paying that debt off to them, then you no longer profit. And what you've done is, in a very generalized sense, you've traded off one form of economic colonialism for someone else's economic colonialism. Yeah.
We can't even catch a break, can we? Anyway, I also wanted to talk about, tit for tat, and that's been happening lately. One would not necessarily expect it from a country like Namibia, who just recently elected a woman to be its president. So starting April 1 this year, Namibia ended a visa entry for citizens of the United States of America and 33 other travelers. And this is just coming on the heels of this whole tariff war. And many people are saying, well, oh, wow, way to go, Namibia. But is that really a step in the right direction?
I'll break that down in a different way. I honestly think making it easier for us to travel and go to other countries is always to be encouraged. So I would hate for a country to just blanket revoke visas. But I think there's a special case here regarding Americans. Now, I'm going to tell you, one of the benefits of being an American is I never had to get a visa to go anywhere except for Iran. Okay, and Iran was kind of a special case, as you might know. And that's because I'm American, and we get to travel the world after World War II. And the question some people say is, well, why should Americans have a privileged position to go around the world doing this when their government is not only slapping tariffs on you, but when their government is actually detaining people who come to America, including some tourists, by the way, and went in, and I don't want to make too light of this, when they actually are detaining legal migrants and disappearing them, which is what has been happening in the past few weeks. So I think, in terms of Namibia saying, look, the U.S. doesn't get special status with visas, fully understand it. To actually make that into, we're going to pull down, like we're going to put up restrictions to like lots of other countries, the first thing you wind up doing is you hurt your tourist industry. I mean, and you hurt other sectors of your economy because you make it more difficult for people to come visit you. So in the long run, it doesn't make sense.
I think that this is just going to build up into, I mean, there are many more things that's going to come off this. I mean, I have a friend who lives in England and wanted to go to the US and has been very jittery about going to the US because she's like, oh my God, they're checking through people's phones. She was just worried, and I said, well, you're just a tourist. I'm a bloody journalist. I don't think there's anything they're going to get on me. I don't think they're going to stop us from coming into the US. But of course, it's okay for people to averagely be worried about what's happening in the US, with this whole airport searches and all of that.
Do you want me to give you a headline for your social media feed after this? And this is just a broad statement, and I'm speaking now just personally to you, not just as an analyst. For the first time this week, I would actually say that the Trump administration is not a wannabe autocracy. I would say for the first time in my life, the U.S. has an authoritarian regime.
Wow.
And I know what that means. And you know what that word means in Africa negotiating what authoritarian means, right? They have an authoritarian regime. And I can go into a lot of other topics. We could talk about the defiance of the judicial system, including the Supreme Court. As we mentioned earlier, just disappearing people without any legal due process of law. The attempt to basically break down universities, which is happening even as we speak. The attempt to break down healthcare, to break down environmental research. I can go through it all. You now are having an authoritarian regime. And now I'll speak to you personally, because this has come up with my friends as well, and it's come up with my family. I'm going to the U.S. for Mother's Day to visit my mother in a few weeks. My father just passed, so it's really important that I go back and see her. Now, I'm not so worried because I'm a U.S. citizen, and I'm a U.S. passport. I would not be worried if my wife came with me. She's a UK, British citizen. I would have second thoughts about my wife going to the United States on her own right now. Because she is married to me, because I do have a social media profile, because I have criticized the Trump folks. And, it might not be she would be detained and disappeared in El Salvador, but she could be harassed. I have 2 children, if you don't mind me speaking personally to you, and this is an added effect. One of them lives in the Netherlands now. Now, he's an American citizen. He will never go to the United States. He has actually renounced America. He says, I don't want anything to do with that country, which breaks my heart to hear that, right? My daughter is in London, and she would love to go to America. She'd love to see her grandmother. But she says, I'm not sure, I don't know I feel safe. Now, for me to hear that, as someone who grew up in America where you always felt like we had certain values, we didn't always live up to them, but we had those values of freedom and those values of security that we thought we had. Yeah, I'm hoping it's a short-lived authoritarian regime. It certainly is not as restrictive as some other authoritarian regimes, but that is an authoritarian regime, and we need to call it out for that while hoping we can make it better in our own ways.
Well, I really hope that you don't get harassed when you go to the US. I really fingers crossed.
I'll give you a call. I'll give you a call to get me out of detention if that happens. All right?
I don't even have a passport. That would be
I'll have you send the bosses. Yeah, exactly. So look, Nigeria Info FM is basically my sponsor here. Get me out of big prison, Trump prison, wherever that is.
Anyway, join the conversation.
A quick reminder.
Yeah.
Quick reminder. By the way, remember, we're talking about a system which is headed up by a convicted felon. That's the irony of all of this. that the man who should be in prison.
I mean, there are people who would debate that, oh, come on, it was just trumped up charges to make him look bad and just to stop him from being president. So really, I mean, it's debatable. But I want to bring Lagosians into the conversation. Lagos, join the conversation. 0201-277-0993. If you're male, for the females, you can call 0201-465-7190. Send me a WhatsApp message, 08095975-805. We're talking, of course, the U.S.-China tariff war and how it affects the rest of the world and, of course, the global markets. 60 seconds is all you have. Go straight to the point. Hello.
Yeah, good evening, Maryann.
Good evening.
You have Emmanuel on the line speaking to you from Ekwe.
Emmanuel, go ahead, please.
One of my concerns is that the Nigerian government, has not created that avenue, for Nigerians to know more about how to engage in international trade, Because a lot of Chinese companies are going online, to expose the fact that some of the luxury goods, that are being bought around the world, are really made in China so cheaply, and then they are shipped to other countries and then portrayed as expensive and luxury goods. What do you think? What do your guests think about opening up the system, for almost everybody in Africa, to get access to these goods? And then again, I think U.S. will likely blink because for everything that we've been seeing, I think they have the cards just like President Trump would say, and I think U.S. have a lesser card or even no cards at all. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So Scott, he's saying that he thinks the U.S. might blink first, and that.
I think.
Yeah, go ahead.
The U.S. has already blinked. I mean, because remember that initially these Trump tariffs were set at different rates for different countries. So, you had like 26% on India. You had China and Mexico had 25% on certain sectors that were put on them. The EU was 20%, as you mentioned earlier. And, and poor Lesotho had 50%. And then Trump comes out a week later and says, oh, we're going to reduce the tariff on on every country down to a 10% baseline. And the reason why he did that, and I can go into detail, but I looked into it, is because American businesses were going to him. American legislators, including Republicans, were going to him. They said, you're going to drive up American inflation. You're going to spike American inflation because it's our people that pay for this in the goods. And foreign leaders, including the leader of Switzerland, put a similar message to Trump, and he blinked. He said, okay, because remember, the U.S. stock market was dropping like a stone. And Trump does not like it when the stock market drops. So he reduced the tariffs, but he didn't eliminate them completely. So he has already blinked to a certain extent. Now, because he wants to still look tough, he compensated by jacking up the tariffs on China. So the question now here is does he blink in the face of China? Now, that's a much bigger question. Because if Trump blinks in the face of China, he's lost. I mean, he's humiliated. Yeah. And so, but the real question here that you watch, and I think the caller, Imano, thank you so much, it's a great question, is what really will dictate this is when the economic effects are felt in America over those tariffs that he hasn't completely removed, and the tariffs on China specifically. Because when inflation, and it is already going back up in the United States, starts to go back up, when you have job losses, which you will have because of this and already having, that's when Americans get rattled. It's not a Democrat or Republican thing, left versus right. The reason why Trump won last November was in large part because of economic concerns. Now, if he can't turn the economy around, then his approval rating slips, his political position slips. And so it's like a race against time. It's whether Trump blinks first in the face of all of that, or does he cause so much damage that actually the American system is beyond repair. And he wins because he can consolidate power in this, as I've called it, authoritarian fashion.
All right. I want to take a few more calls. 0201-277-0993. That's the number for you to call. 0201-277-0993. Hello.
Good afternoon, Maryann.
Good evening. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Good evening. Yeah, this is John calling from Agbara in Ogun State.
Go ahead.
Now, you see, I think the U.S. they will benefit from this trade war in the long run. Now, the question I want to ask you is, how many North Korean goods do you buy? North Korea, I don't know whether they export or even import, and yet they are okay. Yeah. So in fact, I am a fan of Trump just because of this. Let Americans buy American goods.
Okay.
They will enjoy it. Yeah.
Oh dear, we lost that call. So he's saying he's all for the protectionist economy, and I mean, he gave you the example of North Korea. Who are they trading with? And they're okay. That's what he thinks anyway.
I think from what I know about North Korea, although I can't get in there to see it for myself, North Koreans don't exactly have the most advanced, in fact, they don't even have basic standards of living in many sectors. I don't think I would want a North Korean economy. I'm not sure people in Nigeria would want that. Now, would Americans want what we call autarky, to be self-sufficient? The problem here is, ask yourself in the first place why America took in so many goods from other countries, why they took in goods from China or from Africa, from Europe. And that's because it was cheaper to take in goods from other places. America has an advantage in services. It has an advantage in high tech. But in terms of agricultural products in certain sectors, in terms of clothing, Americans got to take products from other places. Now, if you impose tariffs, you might have those goods made in America, but they'll be more expensive. That's going to be the first thing to recognize. Secondly, you can't replace some of those goods that you import very, very quickly. So, for example, it's all well and good to say, "Oh, we'll replace automobiles very, very quickly." Well, it takes time to retool factories to build automobiles. It takes time. For example, we have a very big pharmaceutical industry in Ireland, which exports to the United States. It takes time to build up pharmaceutical industries in the United States. In other words, one of the reasons why you have a global economy is because trade is on a win-win basis.
Yeah.
That you have an advantage in certain goods, you buy from others. If America wants to move away from that, you do so. And that's fine. Good luck on them. But there's an awful high cost to that.
Well, Prof, I have to go. Unfortunately, someone's trying to kick me out of the studio. But we want to say thank you so much for coming. Professor Scott Lucas is a professor of U.S. and international politics at the Clinton Institute and University College in Dublin. Thank you so much for coming. And my condolences again on losing your dad. Thank you so much. We appreciate you for coming on the show.
My very best to you and all your great listeners and viewers.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, Lagos, that's the show. I want to thank you all for being part of the conversation. Follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, MIMIEYO, or just search for Maryann Okon anywhere and I will pop up. I leave you in the very good hands of Kemi.
All right, Lagos. I've got gist for my tech lovers, okay? If you're looking for that game-changing phone that's going to take your mobile experience to the next level, then yes, look no further because the wait is finally over. Get ready for the Redmi A5, okay? It has 4 vibrant colors. Yes, it comes in 4 vibrant colors. It's sleek with contemporary designs, and the colors are midnight black, sandy gold, lit green.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.